So I chose a surah a little bit longer. This surah is Surah Az-Zukhruf. And I would kind of advise you to kind of read along with me as we go through it. Surah Az-Zukhruf is around, I think, 7 to 8 pages or so. And the reason I chose it is because of its purpose, or the goal of the surah, and where it exists within the cluster that it's a part of. So Surah Az-Zukhruf is a part of a cluster of surahs in the Quran called the Hawamim. It starts with Surah Ghafir and ends with Surah Al-Ahqaf. And these surah all have a similar purpose, have a similar theme, and they give advice for those who continue, or for those who are willing to carry the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to others, those who are serving the deen and serving people in the name of the deen. These surahs, each one gives a piece of advice, either something that you should do or something you should be aware of. And Surah Ghafir does that, and Surah Fussilat and Shura, each one gives a piece of advice. Surah Ghafir talks about the importance of dua as you perform da'wah. I mean, the importance of having a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you go through it, as you speak to those who deny the signs of God. Surah Fussilat talks about the importance of performing da'wah with behavior, not with words. Surah Shura talks about the importance of good company, people who are like-minded, allowing you to actually consult and get counseling on your da'wah as you move forward. And Surah Az-Zukhruf is the beginning of the surahs within this group that doesn't give advice on something to do, but it gives advice, warns of something you shouldn't do. And the warning in Surah Az-Zukhruf comes from you can figure out what it's talking about just from the name. What does Zukhruf mean? Ordinance or decoration. In Arabic, the core meaning of Zukhruf is something that looks nice on the outside, but has no essence, has no substance, has no real value. It's just shiny. It just looks good. And that's the word, and that's the usage of it in the Arabic language for the Arab. They use something Zukhruf, it just looks nice. But really, if you were to take it, it's not. So you didn't use that to describe gold or silver, because yes, they are shiny, but they actually have value. Zukhruf was used for something that just looks nice. You put it up, and it's decoration. But once it's over, you're going to gather all of it and throw it in the garbage. It has no real value in itself. And you can kind of get a sense of what the surah is warning. The surah is warning from the mentality of materialism. And it looks at this way of thought, or it looks at this perspective, or this mentality from a number of different angles throughout the surah. And it warns us that this type of logic, the logic of materialism, the logic of materialistic value for things, is a logic that is broken, and it doesn't work for Muslims. It just doesn't work. If you're performing da'wah, this logic can't be the way of thought, cannot dictate the way that you carry your da'wah or the way that you live your life. And I believe that it's an appropriate theme, or it's an appropriate surah for us to talk about in Ramadan. Because I don't think, or maybe there was, but I could be, this is what I think. I don't think there's been a time historically where the human being has been subjected to so much materialistic goods and needs, and such a culture of consumerism that we are a part of, to the point where it's difficult to go through life without being pushed very forcefully towards seeing everything like that. Seeing success, it's hard to see success today if it's not attached to a lot of money or a lot of fame. And I want you to think about that as we go through this surah. It's hard for us to define success without one of those two things being there. And really, neither of those two things were ever needed Islamically and historically. You didn't need to be famous. You definitely did not need to have a lot of money in order for you to be someone who was successful in life. And today, not only is it difficult for us to imagine anything different, but the generations that is growing up defines it that way, which is a very scary. It's a very scary thing to contemplate, that our children are actually growing up defining success with both of these things, or one of them at least. when historically really neither of them was a criteria for someone being successful. And I remember I gave a similar talk to this, but it was a much younger group. And one asked, well, if it's not fame or success, then what is it? Sometimes people just ask, and they ask the question, like, what is it? If it's not, like, if you're saying that it's not fame and success, then what is it? Fame and wealth, then what is success? If it's not fame and wealth, then what is it? And I was stumped for a moment. And I was stumped, like, yeah, what is it? I forget. I don't even remember what it is. But obviously there are many things. Obviously the service that you offer people. Obviously the relationships that you have. Obviously the peace of mind and the peace of heart that you're able to achieve in life. The good reputation that you pick up from treating people properly and being an advocate of khair. This is what success was defined by for many millenniums. But today things are different. And I think because of that, there's value in us reading Surah Az-Zukhruf. Because it really does. I advise you, even like on your own time, to read Surah Az-Zukhruf and just kind of think about that. Think about this logic, this materialistic logic that is broken in essence, that actually causes a lot of harm. And it talks about it. And you'll see even the story that's in it, the story of Musa alayhi salam, that is in the Quran countless number of times. You lose count of how many times Qissat Musa is in the Quran. But then the way it's told in Surah Az-Zukhruf, not told like that anywhere else. And then you'll figure out right away why, because of the focus that the surah has. So inshallah, with that being said, we'll start with the surah. It is a late Makki. So this is how I kind of break it down. Surahs are either early Makki, late Makki, early Madani, late Madani. These four phases are the simplest way to kind of categorize the surahs of the Quran in terms of figuring out when they were revealed. Because I explained to you the sequence theming of the surah. It's a part of Surah Al-Hawamim. That's where it exists in the Mus'haf. But then it has another dimension. Each surah has two dimensions. When it was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. And it was revealed maybe the 60th surah, in something like that, within the chronological sequencing of it, and it was revealed towards the end of the Makki timing of his prophecy sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the last maybe 3 to 4 years of his time in Mecca sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I will recite inshallah some of the verses. You don't have to recite with me, and then I'll explain bidnillah ta'ala some of the ayat. We'll try to go up to ayah maybe number 10 or 11. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حميم والكتاب المبين إنا جعلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون وإنه في أم الكتاب لدينا لعلي حكيم. Hamim at the beginning are the two letters, similar to Alif Lam Mim and Alif Lam Mim Ra, or Alif Lam Mim Sad, Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad, and Qaf, and very similar. All of them serve a similar purpose. They're all, in the way I look at it, they're coding at the beginning of a surah. Surahs that have similar beginnings, have similar themes and similar purposes. And you'll find that throughout the whole Quran. That's why this whole cluster is called Hawamim. Every surah in it starts with Hamim at the beginning of it. And if you follow all the surahs that start with Alif Lam Mim, you'll find a similar basic background in terms of what the surah is actually explaining, and you just take that and run with it, and you find there's a lot of similarities within the surahs that start similarly or have similar beginnings. And here it's really no different. And he takes an oath, subhanahu wa ta'ala, wal kitab al mubin, and he swears, and I swear, or I take an oath by the clear book, or the clarifying book. Now, al mubin can be looked at in both ways linguistically. It could be understood similarly to bayyin, meaning it's very clear, or it could be understood as something that is clarifying. So, wal kitab al mubin, the book that is clarifying. Inna ja'alnahu Qur'anan Arabiyyan la'allakum ta'qilun. Indeed, we have made this book an Arabic Quran. Obviously, the people who are receiving the book are Arab. And it would make no sense for them to receive a book in a language they didn't speak, or in a dialect that they couldn't understand. So when the wondering comes around, like, well, if this is the final book of God, then why is it in the Arabic language? Well, it's going to be in a language There's no universal language that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just snubbed and decided not to send the Quran in it. Every group of people will have their own tongue that they'll speak. And the Prophet ﷺ, beginning his da'wah speaking to the Arab within the peninsula, then it was only natural for the book to be within their mother tongue. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, so you're able. So hopefully, this is what لَعَلَّكُمْ means. So the hope is, and the goal is, that you comprehend. تَعْقِلُونَ, that you understand, that it makes sense to you what we're going to say. And then you can see right off the bat, the surah starts pointing towards something a little bit. وَإِنَّهُ فِي أُمِّ الْكِتَابِ لَدَيْنَا. And indeed, this book, فِي أُمِّ الْكِتَابِ. Now, الْكِتَاب, this is a phrase that refers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's infinite knowledge. When he says, بَلْ هُوَ قُرْآنٌ مَجِيدٌ, Allah Jazil Khair was reciting it a few moments ago, بَلْ هُوَ قُرْآنٌ مَجِيدٌ فِي لَوْحٍ مَحْفُوظٍ. So when you take al-lawh al-mahfuz and you hear about al-Kitab, scholars historically have differed on exactly what all this is. And we don't know for sure. And there's really no way for us to know for sure what it all is. But what we do know is that anything beyond the book that we're reading is basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's infinite knowledge. There are things that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about. And He will refer to His infinite knowledge, to the fact that He is omniscient and He knows what happened in the past and what will happen in the future. He refers to it in words like Kitab, for example. And He'll refer to it sometimes in words like Lawh al-Mahfuz. At the end, it's pretty much the same. يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ وَعِنْدَهُ الْكِتَابِ in Surah Al-Ra'd, for example. So I use these phrases to refer to something, to an aspect of knowledge or to a collection of knowledge that only He subhanahu wa ta'ala has access to. And this is where the concept of something maktub becomes problematic for a lot of people. And this is something that I'm tired of discussing with my younger brothers and sisters. It's just I'm getting fed up with it. So they come and they tell you, if it's maktub, then why am I doing it? Ya aini. When he says that something's maktub subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's referring to the fact that He knows about it. Meaning it's already known. It's in a book of knowledge that He knows about. No other creation or creature has access to that book of knowledge. Meaning the future and what it holds is something that is only known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. That's it. No one else knows what you're going to do next. Now, if you struggle with that on a level of saying, well, if He knows what I'm doing, then how exactly can you justify that I have freedom of choice? Well, really the problem with that argument is that you are literally equalizing the nature of your knowledge with the nature of the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the way you know the future is if the thing that's doing whatever it is doing is programmed to do it. Meaning, if you pull the car, you turn it, you direct it towards the pillar, and you send it, you can predict that it's going to slam right into the wall because it has no choice. That's the nature of my knowledge. That's the nature of your knowledge. If you're sitting in front of a computer and you've coded something, and before you press enter, you can predict, when I press this is what's going to happen because it has no choice. It's programmed to do that. Now, if you believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge is equal to yours, the same thing, meaning if He knows the future, that must mean that He pre-programmed us for something, then you're basically equalizing yourself to God. And that's a problem on its own. Meaning that sin on its own is very problematic because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, knows the future, but without you being programmed. And if you wonder, well, how? And my answer is because He is God, because He is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the difference. That is the difference. That He knows even though you're not programmed. If you're wondering how, well, when you meet Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can ask the question. And you can see maybe at some point in Jannah we're able to actually comprehend some of this stuff. But really, it comes from the human arrogance of always wanting to compare ourselves to Allah. And assuming that whatever He does subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's doing it similar to us. And the Quran tells you the exact opposite. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. He sees and He hears, but nothing is like Him. He is not like anything else. Stop comparing. That's the end of the rant. وَإِنَّهُ فِي أُمِّ الْكِتَابِ لَدَيْنَا لَعَلِيٌّ حَكِيمٌ. And indeed, this Quran, within our infinite knowledge, is described as Ali, of very high status, Hakim, as very wise. The Quran being described as both of high status, of high regard, and of wisdom. Because not everything is measurable. And you're wondering, well, why did He say that here, subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because the surah right off the bat is going to start pointing out to you things that are not tangible, that are not measurable, that are not a part of the observable universe. Kitab that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not something that we can ever have access to, and it's not measurable. And you'll never know about it. And it's not something that science is going to be able to access, and you're never going to be offered any measurement units that will allow you to deal with it. And the logic of materialism does not allow for such thoughts to exist. It doesn't allow for such way of thought to actually even be there. And the surah starts pointing out these little gems so that we continue to contemplate that a part of you being, there is no faith on the face of earth, on the face of this earth that encourages critical thinking like Islam does. At no point in your life are you ever required to follow anything blindly, ever. It's not a part of being a Muslim. But there is a part of believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that forces you and me to believe in ghaib, that there are things that are unseen. There's a part of this world that we don't know about, that we can't access, that is not measurable, that is not observable. That's a part of believing in God. You can't actually believe in Allah or believe in a deity and then expect there to be nothing that is unknown to you or nothing that is unmeasurable to you. That's why he calls himself subhanahu wa ta'ala alimul ghaybi wa shahada. He knows that which is unseen and that which is observable and seen. The problem with dealing with the unseen, the problem with dealing with the part of life that is not measurable, that is not tangible, that is not observable within the universe, is the hikmah of what to do with it. Is the hikmah of what do we do with it? What do we do with that which we don't know? How do we deal with jinn, for example? They're in a different realm. We don't even know. We have no idea exactly where they exist. They're not a part of the universe that we're living in. They're not a part of the reality that we have. So how do we understand them? And the problem with dealing with ghaib, the problem with dealing with anything that is beyond our ability to measure, is that it does cause people to walk down a path of superstition. It does cause people to stop using critical thinking processes to actually come to conclusions. And being a Muslim is just being able to hold on to both. A Muslim cannot afford to swing the pendulum in one direction over the other. You can't afford as a Muslim to deny the part of life that is unknown to us, that is unseen, that is spiritual, that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly, that we're never going to actually be able to measure. And we can't swing the pendulum in the direction of saying, of leaving dunya and not being a part of it and not actually affecting it and not planning things out properly and understanding how the world works by using an excuse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us whatever He will, or qada and qadar will happen in the way. Both approaches are very ill-defined and they are incorrect. And Surah Az-Zukhruf is just taking this pendulum and just kind of centralizing it a little bit. To say that both aspects are very important here. What are we at more risk of? We're at more risk of becoming extremely materialistic. We're at way more risk. Even though we continue to struggle with issues of superstition within our community and our society as Muslims, but we're much more at risk for that today. And I think it's always been the case, and that's why Surah Az-Zukhruf, I believe, Wallahu Alam, is of a certain degree of importance. He continues, subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَفَنَضْرِبُ عَنْكُمُ الذِّكْرَ صَفْحًا أَن كُنْتُمْ قَوْمًا مُسْرِفِينَ وَكَمْ أَرْسَلْنَا مِن نَّبِيٍّ فِي الْأَوَّلِينَ وَمَا يَأْتِيهِم مِّن نَّبِيٍّ إِلَّا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ فَأَهْلَكْنَا أَشَدَّ مِنْهُم بَطْشًا وَمَضَىٰ مَثَلُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala in the 5th verse, أَفَنَضْرِبُ عَنْكُمُ الذِّكْرَ صَفْحًا. So this is a linguistic complex. When he says نَضْرِبُ صَفْحًا, means that should we ignore you? Should we neglect you? Should we give you a pass? Should we act like you're not there and just look in the other direction? That's what نَضْرِبُ صَفْحًا means. It's just I'm not going to go into the origins of the complex because it'll take a long time and I don't think it's of any benefit to you. But it's just a way of speech, it's a figure of speech in Arabic that means should we neglect you or should we look the other way? أَفَنَضْرِبُ عَنْكُمُ الذِّكْرَ. Should we take away this reminder, the Quran? Should we not send you the reminder and neglect you and look the other way and send it someone else? أَن كُنْتُمْ قَوْمًا مُسْرِفِينَ. Because you were a group of people that committed israf. So you can see right at the beginning of the surah, he's focusing subhanahu wa ta'ala at the problem. Al-israf is extravagance. Al-israf is basically extravagance. It's spending more than what you have. It's a way of thought, and I talked about this not too long ago in a khutbah at LMM. It's one of the challenges that Hud alayhi salam had. Dealing with extravagance, dealing with materialism, dealing with people who valued wealth more than it should, and they spent more than they had, and they were not conservative with the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they mistreated it and they misused it. And that's what israf means. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking a question. It's a rhetorical question because the answer is no. You're still going to get the dhikr. But do we neglect giving you the dhikr? Do we neglect giving you the Quran just because you're a group of people who are musrifin, who refuse to be moderate in the way that they deal with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them with their wealth? And the answer is, of course, no. We're going to give it to you anyway. We're going to send it your way even though you've walked down a path of israf, of wasting, of being wasteful of the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and being wasteful of the dunya, and being very focused. You see, a musrif is someone who is very focused on what they have and what they would like next. And they're using that to buy even more and to accumulate more and to possess more. It's an ill way of thought when we're not able to identify the fact that materialistic possessions you can't buy happiness with them. They're not as meaningful to us in life as we're being led to think they are over the last maybe couple of decades. They don't do it. This emptiness that you find inside of you, you're going to try and fill it up with a lot of things, and money and possessions is going to be one of them. And you'll throw you'll throw a house and a car and maybe a few cars and maybe a cottage, and it's not going to get smaller. That emptiness inside will just keep on getting bigger. It just consumes more, and the more it consumes, the more hungry it gets, and the more it wants, and nothing's ever enough. That's why the Prophet ﷺ would say, وَلَا يَمْلَأُ جَوْفَ ابْنِ آدَمَ أو فَمَ ابْنِ آدَمَ إِلَّا التُّرَابِ. Nothing will ever actually fully satisfy the human being's greed except the dirt and the soil, and that's referring to death. It's only when you're dead that you fully understand what this all was. You fully understand the value of everything that you had and everything that you wanted and everything that you did not get and everything that you neglected and failed to achieve and failed to actually possess and obtain in your life. That's when you fully understand the value of it. And you'll find out that all the money in the world was not worth an hour with your sibling, or an hour with your parents, or an hour with your kid. That all the money in the world was not worth a day going by with you on bad terms with a relative in your life. It just wasn't worth it. In dunya, it seems like this makes no sense. To someone who doesn't, a musrif will not understand any of this stuff. What are you talking about? But when we pass away, when we're in the dirt, when we go back to being soil, which we are right now when we're before, when we go back to that, it becomes extremely obvious and clear that we were just a piece of soil that was enjoying another piece of soil. And there was nothing to this world more than that. And really what mattered were the aspects of life that cannot be measured with soil, that don't have a weight to them. The love that's in your heart and the appreciation and the gratitude and the closeness and the connections that you build, this is what's going to stay with you. And this is what brings happiness, by the way. If you want, there's a Harvard study that went on for over 10 years. And the goal of it was to look at outcomes of happiness. And they took a number of students who actually went to the university, and they followed up with them 10 years. It's one of the longest socio-psychological studies that was ever done. And there's a full TED Talk on it if you want to go and listen to it and learn a bit more. And they looked at these people 10 years later. And they interviewed them prior and they interviewed them after. And they tried to figure out what is the thread, what is the common thread amongst these people that allowed those who were happy to be happy. And the conclusion was, and it's a silly conclusion, wallahi, that it required a couple of Harvard professors to do a study to come up with, because we all knew this early on before, that the reason the happy people are happy because of relationships. What made them happy were good relationships. Those who had strong marriage and were close to their parents and close to their siblings and had a good social network, those were the people who were happy and had nothing to do with their income. It had nothing to do with their income. The studies today say after $65,000, $70,000, $80,000 tops, the human being finds no happiness in more accumulated wealth. Anything you're making over 70, it means nothing. It's not adding to your happiness. I know we think it will. No, once I start making this number, once it's 6 digits, then no, you're not. Just so you know, it's not going to make a difference. How you are prior to that is probably how you're going to be after that. It's not going to make, I know that we're waiting for it, that once you get the 6 digits, nothing. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to open up in you're going to enter some new dimension and suddenly you're going to wake up just as upset and depressed as you did before. Unless what changes are the meaningful aspects of life, which are relationships. And isn't that what Allah offers? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually offer to us besides a relationship? What does He offer really? If you think about it, what is salah really? What is it? Is it anything more than a relationship? What does it do? Like when you finish your prayer, do you see like a virtual check mark go up for you on a checkbox? And say, no, what happens? It's just a relationship. You're building something with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala that's meaningful. And that's what brings happiness. That's what we know brings happiness. So He's saying subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're not going to neglect or stop giving you the dhikr just because you're musrifeen. We're going to keep on telling you this whether you like it or not. And then He gives an example. وَكَمْ أَرْسَلْنَا مِن نَبِيٍّ فِي الْأَوَّلِينَ. And we have sent many, many prophets previously to the preceding and the earlier nations. وَمَا يَأْتِيهِم مِّن نَبِيٍّ. And all these nations before, every time a prophet was sent to them, إِلَّا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. They mocked them. They mocked them. Mockery is one of those key words you'll find in the Quran. Follow the concept of mockery in the Quran. It is always something that is describing the disbelievers. And they're always mocking their prophets because of something that is materialistic in nature. They're mocking them because they're poor. They're mocking them because they're weak. They're mocking them because they're young. They're mocking them because they're different. This is the repeated theme of every act of mockery that exists within the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's something worth even going through and pointing them out in the Quran as they go along. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't explain in detail what happened, but you get the sense because you've read other parts of the Quran. So you know that the mockery is this is a problem of mockery. When you're making fun of people, you're usually not making fun of people because of something of substance. You're not going to make fun of someone because they're very meaningful and they're very deep, and very knowledgeable and they're very wise. You're going to make fun of them for something materialistic. You're going to make fun of them for something that the way they look or the way which is the common theme of how disbelievers treated prophets throughout the Quran. فَأَهْلَكْنَا أَشَدَّ مِنْهُمْ بَطْشًا. So al-halak or ihlak is destruction or to destroy, or to bring demise upon, or to bring an end upon something. فَأَهْلَكْنَا, we brought an end upon them. أَشَدَّ مِنْهُمْ بَطْشًا, upon those who are much stronger. Al-batsh is savagery, is being a savage, not in the good way or the good sense of the word that is used today, but actually going. Batsh is always referring to the following. It's always referring to an army or a group of people that is destroying another, non-differentiating, meaning in an undifferentiated way, meaning just taking out everything. It doesn't matter whether it's a child or a lady or a person or a civilian or a tree. Al-batsh is just wiping everything out. Now, this is something that we're not unfamiliar with even in modern times, but this is the word that's used in Arabic. Al-batsh is to destroy everything, leave nothing. فَأَهْلَكْنَا أَشَدَّ مِنْهُمْ بَطْشًا. He's saying, subhanahu wa ta'ala, we brought the end to a group that had more batsh than the group that you're speaking to, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because you're speaking to Quraysh. We brought it upon those who had more savagery in them than the group that you're speaking to. وَمَضَى مَثَلُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And the example of these preceding nations has been the same. It's been the same thing. We give them a lot, they become powerful, they become wealthy, and then they turn into batsh and they start mistreating others. And they start just because everything is when everything is weighed, when everything is valued, by $1, when everything is valued by how much money you have or how much something is worth, the balance of the world is destroyed. That's why people starve around the world when there's more than enough sustenance for all of us. The reason is because there's no value in feeding certain groups. There's just no value. There's just no money in it. There's no money in it. So the fact that they're a living, breathing soul, starving, requiring food, and you have something to give, isn't enough for people to actually put something forward. And this imbalance and this very unfortunate way of us viewing the world. I can tell you examples in medicine that would bother you. I can tell you about diseases that only affect certain types of people who are very poor, that till this day we have very little advancements in. That there's very little research in it because it only affects the poor people. Only affects those who don't have anything, no one cares about. I can tell you about other diseases who affect a different demographic, and the amount of research out there and the amount of advancements and new and novel medications that are being put out is ridiculous. And you wonder, well, why this one and not that one? I'll tell you, it's a very ugly reason. It's a very unfortunate one, but that's how this world works. Because the way that we think, unfortunately, is not the right way. And that's what the Zukhruf is going to poke at. You're going to see it like, we're just doing the introduction today. This is the introduction of the surah. The actual meat of it will come when we start reciting tomorrow. I'll recite 2 more verses, then I'll let everyone leave. وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُم مَّنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ لَيَقُولُنَّ خَلَقَهُنَّ الْعَزِيزُ الْعَلِيمُ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ مَهْدًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُمْ فِيهَا سُبُلًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the last piece of the introduction, he poses a fact. And if you ask them, and I swear to you, if you ask the disbelievers, in Mecca, and this is the norm of the Arabs in Mecca, Man khalaqa as-samawati wal ard. Who created the cosmos and the earth? Who created all of this? Forget about who made all of this. And you didn't, so did. يَقُولُنَّ خَلَقَهُنَّ الْعَزِيزُ الْعَلِيمُ. They'll say the one who created all of this is the unfathomable Aziz subhanahu wa ta'ala and the omniscient Al-Alim jalla jalaluhu. And these 2 names come together quite often, Al-Aziz Al-Alim in the Quran, because the unfathomable, the wonder is, well, if he's unfathomable and he's unreachable, then maybe he just doesn't know what's going on because he's that far in distance. So Al-Alim is to correct that concept that no, he is, yes, subhanahu wa ta'ala, unfathomable and beyond your ability to reach and you're beyond your ability to affect, but he is definitely omniscient and he is all-knowing of what is happening ahead in front of you and happening within this world. So it's just a correction of a concept. يَقُولُنَّ خَلَقَهُنَّ الْعَزِيزُ الْعَلِيمُ. Then the question becomes, then why do you have idols? If you're saying that yes, there is a God that is that's beyond everything that I understand. He is Al-Aziz. He's way beyond anything that I can imagine. He's beyond my reach, subhanahu wa ta'ala, in every way. And he's omniscient, who is all-knowing. Then why do you have an idol? When you think about it, if this is their answer, this was their answer. This is not made up. This is what if you took someone from Quraysh, a disbeliever, if you took Abu al-Hakam ibn Hisham Abu Jahl and asked him, who created, he'll say Al-Aziz Al-Alim. He'll say Allah. So you ask him, then what's the deal with Hubal, if you don't mind me asking? What is it? And it's just a broken logic. It's just a materialistic broken logic. Because we want something we can touch. As human beings, I want something I can put in my hand. I want something I can see. Something I can poke at. I don't want to be told that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is outside of the realm of time and space. And I will never actually be able to see Him during my life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not contained in this reality that I'm a part of. I can't imagine anything outside of time and space. That's my reality. I'm confounded by it. I'm limited and restricted by it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it so He's beyond it. So you'll never see Him throughout your life. And your actual senses, you won't actually hear His voice. You won't see His face. You can't touch Him. You can't feel Him. If that's the case, then well, someone who's very materialistic won't like that. That's not what I want. I want something I can hold, something I can see, someone I can speak to. So they took different idols in different forms. Some of the forms were just a piece of rock. Today, maybe it's not rock, maybe it's just another human being. Cow. Maybe a cow, I guess, to a certain degree. I'm actually more concerned about it being a human being. I'm actually more concerned about maybe what we've done. Yes, there are groups that have done cows, and that's their prerogative. But what I'm afraid of are for us who are reading this book, if we just substitute rock, sanam, an idol, a rock, with a person, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا إلها واحدا. Those who took their ahbar, their scholars and their leaders, and that's why we're going to talk about Fir'aun in this surah, because it's easy to. If the materialistic way of thought isn't removed, then it'll just be a substitution. You remove the rock-based sanam, you bring something else in that is soil-based. You'll bring something else from this world that you need as a substitution, and it can be a human being. And today I see this more than any other day before. I see today our lack of ability to see people as people. We have a lack of ability to see a human being as a human being, with their flaws, and to respect that, and to be willing to walk behind a leader that isn't perfect, and to be willing to listen to someone who has flaws just like you. This need to believe that those who are going to lead, or those who are going to speak, or those who are going to actually help us have to be perfect, have to be super people, who have, that's not the truth, and that's not the reality. And that's not what the Prophet ﷺ did himself. That's not what he taught the people who came after him. That's not what the Sahaba were. That's not how life has moved forward. Accepting that we're all flawed, and that we benefit from the experiences, and we benefit from the wisdom, and we benefit from the leadership and the skill set of those who are actually taking on a task amongst us, is the norm of being a Muslim. The need to believe something more, and to need to believe that there's more to this person than that is beyond that, is actually a scary thing. It's scary, and it shouldn't be there. But that's what they did. They did it in their form, and they had rocks instead. I think we should, I don't think that we're that different. We just stopped worshiping rocks. We just changed it a little bit to something else. Just think about that as a concept. And then he subhanahu wa ta'ala starts talking about what he did out of his creation. الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ مَهْدًا. The one who made the earth flat like a bed, even though it's not, even though it's a globe, but he flattened it out for you to walk on. And it's a bed, it's a place that you're born in, and it's a place that you're put to sleep in at another point. Al-Mahd is a place that you come out of, and a place that you go back into. الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ مَهْدًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُمْ فِيهَا سُبُلًا. And within it you will find roads and ways for you to walk and to discover and to explore. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. So that you may find your guidance. So that you may, see, he just made a connection here. I'm not sure if you noticed it. What is the connection between the earth being flattened out for us to walk on, and for there to be roads within it and guidance? Guidance is spiritual. Guidance is not having a map and knowing where you're going is not necessary. But al-hidayah is something that is spiritual, for you to find your way, for you to figure out why you're here, where you're going, and what it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purposed you for the moment that He created you. And Jalla Jalaluhu throughout the whole surah is going to make these connections, that the materialistic world is for you and for me just signs of something that's much bigger, that's much more multidimensional, that's maybe even beyond our ability right now to comprehend and understand. We know the three, that's as far as we can go in terms of dimensions today. But there's much more to that. So he continues to point that out throughout the whole surah. And the first one is here. The one who made the earth, mahda, something that is not spiritual, something that is not unknown. It's very clear. You walk on the earth every day. وَجَعَلَ لَكُمْ فِيهَا سُبُلًا. And within it you will find roads that you will pursue and be able to walk on. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. So that you may find guidance. So that you may find that guidance. I'll end with that and I'll continue inshallah tomorrow. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakumullahu khairan wa barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.